Szép jó napot kívánok ismételten mindenkinek. A texasi piacra lépési program, avagy ugye a Texan Hungarian Venture Bridge Program második virtuális képzésén. Ugye az első tájékoztatót is, hogyha figyelembe veszük, akkor harmadjára találkozunk virtuálisan, viszont utoljára. Tehát ugye itt a Külgazdasági Külügyminisztérium Nemzeti Export stratégiájából finanszírozott program keretén belül. A mai virtuális előadás lesz az utolsó a virtuális részben. Ez egy interaktív előadás, tehát mindenkit kérek, hogy segítsék azzal a munkánkat, hogy nyugodtan kérdezzenek az előadóktól, akár be is tudnak mutatkozni, ami természetesen segíti a mi munkánkat is, hogy megfelelően tudjuk a végzős cégeket kiválasztani. És ugye az első virtuális részt követően a második rész a hónap második felében, 23-án és 24-én történik meg Magyarországon. Ugye 23-án lesz az a széleskörű képzés, amin több vállalkozás is részt vehet. Ez egy egésznapos képzés lesz majd várhatóan a Kunstgram székházában. Előzetes tervek szerint 10 óra és délután 5 óra között. És ugye 24-én lesz az a nap, amikor már csak a finalista, az 5 darab cég kap lehetőséget beszélgetésre, tréningre, illetve az alapján kezdődik meg majd az érdemi munka ugye Texasban. Ugye a kiválasztás nagy valószínűséggel a jövő hét elejére megtörténik. Ez azt jelenti, hogy ha minden jól megy, akkor a hét második felében mindenkit ki tudunk értesíteni, hogy melyik részben tud részt venni, amennyiben kiválasztásra került. És ugye a kiválasztás szempontrendszere az ugye a beküldött kérdőívek, és ugye itt nyilván az előadásokon történt interakció. Tehát arra biztatok mindenkit, hogy legyen aktív, illetve hogy még nem küldte be a kérdőívet, kitöltve, akkor még tudja pótolni. És még egy technikai dolog, hogy mindenkinek, aki valamilyen szinten be lesz válogatva, egy nyilatkozatot majd fogunk kiküldeni, ezt tényleg szívesen visszaküldeni, azt ugye itt a pályázati források felhasználása miatt van. És természetesen ugye itt az alkonzulátus áll mindenki rendelkezésére, hogyha Texasba akar jönni, tehát kiválasztástól függetlenül is jövőben. Mielőtt Kevinnek átadnám a szót, arra kérnék mindenkit, hogy nyugodtan kapcsolja be a kameráját ezúttal. A mikrofont csak akkor kapcsolják ki, amikor előadások vannak, vagy hogyha valamilyen technikai zűr interferencia lenne, és kérdéseket nyugodtan tegyék fel, de természetesen tovább is a chat-ablakba várjuk a kérdéseket. So, switching to English and giving back the word to Kevin, I was just explaining a bit of the framework and giving an idea of our selection process, giving some intro on the program, the second part of the program, the in-person visit in Hungary. So, Kevin, why I don't just give the floor to you and you start today's presentation. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you again for this opportunity to be with you this morning, this afternoon, this evening. I know we have entrepreneurs that are around the world. In fact, today, part of our core community from the Venture Outfitter, the Tech Ranch has 4 different business units, and one of them is called the Venture Outfitter. The Venture Outfitter has a community around it. So we'll have some individuals that are going to be joining us from that community as well. So welcome first and foremost to our Hungarian partners and entrepreneurs. Secondly, to our Venture Outfitter community. I'm real excited to be here with you this morning or this afternoon if in Budapest. But what we're going to do is we're going to kick off the second seminar for the Texas Hungarian Venture Bridge. And we'll go a little bit more into a different set of concerns in this seminar. Questions are always okay. You can easily put them into the chat, and or if there is something you'd like to ask verbally, that'd be fine as well. I want you to feel comfortable about signaling that you're interested in speaking. The easiest way to do so is to take yourself off of mute, and then I'll recognize that if you want to speak live, or we have the chat session open as well, so we can answer, questions on the fly. I'd like this to be as interactive as we possibly can be. And we will have some time at the very end for just questions that might not be referring to a specific slide, but going in more depth. So just hopping right in, happy to have our Venture Bridge partners and supporters, BME 10 in Budapest, Tungstrom in Budapest, Kajatari Global here in Austin, with the supporters of the Hungarian American Chamber, the Next Association, and then also the City of Austin. And thank you for our host, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary. Real excited to be able to work with Consul Gabor, and excited about what this project represents. So going over the goals to just establish what are we trying to do in this very first simple bridge, right? There's a lot of different things that we'd like to do long term, but right now it's the first thing is to open opportunities for collaboration between our regions. We're really wanting to aggressively target early success. There's going to be an opportunity for lots of different companies, but really the thing we're trying to do in this first thing is find what are the first success moments that we can actually create in the beginning start of a bridge. And the third thing is then obviously looking for expanding our work together. If you missed the previous seminar, it is recorded, and we went over a number of different opportunities around, like the City of Austin Director of Economic Development presented. The gentleman who is responsible for helping Tesla come to Austin, Ben Ramirez, who is also a partner in this program, presented as well. And then there was an overview of Austin cultural context to give you an idea what makes Austin different. Austin, in my view, is a very unique city in the United States. And a lot of times when we look at different countries, we lump everything together. We kind of think Americans are a certain style. There's a very unique flavor of Austin that we talked about in the previous. If you're interested in that seminar, it is recorded and available for your consumption. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to focus more on the market overview, since there's a number of different applications that have come in the bio space, in the bioscience space. I wanted to make sure that we had one of our experts present around that. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to hear from one of the successful entrepreneurs in the innovation bridge that happened between Mexico and Texas about 3 years ago. 2 to 3 years ago is when he started getting involved, and he continues to be involved in the tech branch community. I want to make sure that you hear firsthand and be able to ask him questions about how do you take advantage of a bridge like this, especially if you have an early stage firm. Companies that have lots of resources don't have to be so conservative about that, but we'll hear directly from David Potes about that. And then the third thing is I'm going to share some key insights that build on top of what David tells us about some things that help me be successful, or that have helped me in my history of an entrepreneur that's done business outside of the United States, how to cross borders and how to actually be successful at that with early stage firms. And we will have a number of different other things that are going to be happening with the interactions and stuff like that. For today, the executive director of the Temple Health and Bioscience District, her name is Tami Annable. She's a good friend as well as a colleague. She will be one of the mentors of the program. She had a family emergency and so wasn't able to join us live today, but she did do a recording. She is available to answer your questions. So I'm going to be playing a recording as I switch over to sharing about what she said. We'll go through things. I have the recording set up so that on each slide, there's a little bit of information in a video, and then I will be clicking to the next one. I thought that we'd start with this. Tami would normally be with us live, but because of the situation that happened yesterday, thankfully, she was able to go ahead and do this recording. And it'll give us kind of an overview of the bio and oncology space, since many of the applications that have applied, actually, we're talking about that. Let me just switch over really quick.
Hi, my name is Tami Annable, and it is a pleasure to present to you today.
Sorry about that. We'll start again.
Hi, my name is Tami Annable, and it is a pleasure to present to you today. So today we're going to talk about oncology in Texas, as well as the bioscience ecosystem in Texas. Now, as you know, Texas is a very large state, so I'm only actually able to talk about 5 of the cities that are in this state, because we'd be here all day if I talked about everything. But to give you a little background about myself, the majority of my adult life, I was a cancer researcher for Big Pharma. I worked for Novartis, Pfizer, Lederle, Wyeth, and the past 6 years, I was the executive director to a life science incubator in Temple, Texas, called Temple Health and Bioscience District. Let's talk about CPRIT, which is the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. This is a state agency that funds cancer research in Texas. It is funded by bonds issued by the state, and researchers and organizations in Texas are invited to apply for grants that match CPRIT's mission and goals. Texas leads the nation in its commitment to the war on cancer. CPRIT has funded 1,585 awards for cancer research, product development, and prevention since 2010. The amount awarded thus far is $2,721,102,000. Recipients of the CPRIT awards include 115 academic institutions, nonprofit organizations, and private companies, all located in Texas. Now, your take-home message here is that it's now a $6 billion 20-year initiative. So this is the largest state cancer research investment in the history of the United States, and the second largest cancer research and prevention program in the world. So there's plenty of money still left to be given out if your technology happens to be involved with cancer. I put the link here, and what you're going to notice is on all of my slides, there are going to be links. I made a PDF of this slide presentation so that if you need any of these links, you'll be able to access them because they're all live. Just let Gio or Kevin know that you would like the PDF of the presentation, and then you can move forward with that.
And we'll make sure that those links are available to you.
So let's now talk about Houston. But before we do that, I want you to notice where it says upcoming events, biohouston.org. Now, each one of these cities that I'm going to talk about has their own bio organization that you can join. So in this particular case, what I did was I used the upcoming events so you could see what kind of events that these organizations are sponsoring. It'll give you a good feel about the collaborative nature of these organizations and what's happening. So on each city, you'll see I have the upcoming events link. Now, Houston is very special because of the collaborative nature of this city. I have never in all my lifetime, and I've lived in New York and I lived in California, seen a city that has such a collaborative life science ecosystem. Now, Biotech and Life Sciences in Houston is a hub for medical device manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and health research. It has more than 1,760 life science companies, cutting-edge healthcare facilities, and research institutions. The Texas Medical Center, which is TMC, is located on a 2.1 square mile medical district. In this medical district, you're going to find research organizations, hospitals, education facilities, incubators, as well as accelerators. Now, there's also an Innovation Institute, and this Innovation Institute has an accelerator and an incubator. The accelerator is the TMCX, and it focuses on early stage companies making breakthroughs in medical devices, digital healthcare services, diagnostics, and therapeutics. TMCX Plus is the incubator portion that targets seed stage companies in the same sectors. In 2017, the Texas Medical Center launched the TMC Venture Fund, which aims to invest $25 million in early stage healthcare tech companies in Houston. Let's talk about Dallas. Now, Dallas-Fort Worth ranks 6th among over 400,000 STEM degrees, a key factor in determining a life science talent pool. STEM, just as a reminder, is science, technology, engineering, and math. And what's important about this is if you decide that Dallas is the city where you want to place your company, that you have this life science talent pool available to you. Now, Dallas is invested in the Life Science Innovation District, and what they have done is built a 23-acre park that has reserved nearly 40,000 square foot of state-of-the-art flexible lab, training and office space to serve as the epicenter for the regional life science innovation and to enable biotech trailblazers in their pursuit of the next big scientific breakthrough. This is huge. Now, biolabs recognize the importance of this epicenter, and they are actually locating their 9th site within the Pegasus Park, and biolabs is a life science co-working space. So I strongly recommend you to look at the link for Pegasus Park because this is a ground floor opportunity for you. It's a brand new park, and they are just now taking applications for companies to join them in this park. San Antonio is the 7th largest city in America, and it is a leader in the life science industry. This sector combines unique assets, diverse resources, and a tangible spirit of collaboration. There's that word again. San Antonio is home to 2 level 1 trauma centers and 2 of the top 10 largest hospitals in the United States. One of the largest U.S. military healthcare systems with research facilities, medical education programs, and training complexes. The region has 2 independent and 2 university-run large-scale research organizations and the largest independent nonprofit testing lab in the United States. So if your technology's end user is the military, I would strongly recommend that you would consider San Antonio as one of the spots to land your business, as well as if you're research-oriented and you will need the use of a CRO, this is a great place for you to be. El Paso. Now, El Paso is very unique because it borders Mexico. So the bio organization in El Paso, which is Bio El Paso Juarez, is very unique because their community encompasses West Texas, Southern New Mexico, and Northern Mexico. So this gives you the capabilities of having a binational community. Now, their members represent medical device manufacturers, biotech startups, healthcare providers, academic institutions, and other organizations. There's over 30 factories in the region that's employing more than 40,000 workers that are producing Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 medical devices. Bioscience innovation is flourishing across the borderland, driven by a major hub of activity at the Medical Center of Americas. This 440-acre campus is anchored by the Cardwell Collaborative Biotech Incubator, the Texas Tech University Health Science Center, the University Medical Center, and the El Paso Children's Hospital. So if you're thinking about a multinational or a worldwide business, this might be the place for you to set up shop. Austin, Texas. When you think Austin, Texas, I want you to think the Central Texas region, because this spans a 5-county area and it's home to 2.5 million people and continues to attract businesses and people at a rate that puts it in the top 5 fastest growing large metropolitan regions in the United States. The life science sector is thriving and comprised of several hundred companies ranging from innovative startups to large established public companies in the medtech, biotech, pharma, digital health, clinical research, and manufacturing. This exceptional growth makes Central Texas one of the fastest growing hubs for the life sciences in the United States. Now, this ecosystem provides entrepreneurs and companies with access to venture or private equity financing, skilled labor, and academic institutions, including the University of Texas, Texas A&M, Texas State, and the Austin Community College, to name a few. On this slide, I want to talk to you about some of the collaborations that I made as an executive director with the Temple Health and Bioscience District. ATI, which is the Austin Technology Incubator, is a deep technology incubator of the University of Texas at Austin. They connect innovative startups with the resources that they need to succeed. They focus on economy, energy, food and ag tech, healthcare, mobility, and water. And let me tell you, the mentors at this place are fantastic. The ACC Bioscience Incubator is a wet lab space. It's fully equipped and affordable. They have close to $2 million in lab equipment and instrumentation, and they provide an affordable way to get you started and a great way to foster the future of life science workforce in Austin. Texas Medical Device Alliance, commonly referred to as TMDA. If your device or your research or technology ends up being a medical device, I strongly recommend that you join this association. The primary objective of the Alliance is to provide support from idea, conception to patient care implementation. They have quarterly meetings that are either in person or virtual that feature service-oriented presentation, networking opportunity, and mentoring. So these are just a few of the organizations. Again, I'm just giving you a snippet. So if you take home any message from this presentation, that is that Texas is a state of collaboration. Reach out, get connected, join the associations that I talked about, a few more that weren't mentioned on any of these slides. Of course, Tex Ranch, which is where you are right now. Texas Health Catalyst is affiliated with the Dell Medical School as well as UT Austin. If you have a technology that deals with unmet needs in healthcare, you want to make sure that you reach out to them. The NSF I-Corps program, this is through the National Science Foundation, and they're going to take you from invention to impact. Mass Challenge you may know about already because it's also in Europe. It's a nonprofit company that supports innovation and entrepreneurship through collaboration, there's that word, and development. Capital City Innovation is an actual health innovation district in Austin. Capital Factory believes they're the center of gravity for entrepreneurs in Texas. They have an 81,000 square foot co-working space with over 150 plus mentors at your disposal. I put down Bio Austin, Bio Houston, Bio North Texas, Bio SA, San Antonio, and Bio El Paso again to remind you that these groups are worth taking a look at. So I would like to end my presentation with a success story. I want to tell you about Advanced Scanners. They are one of the startup companies that joined my incubator in 2017. We gave them $25,000 in seed funding to get their business off the ground. And what makes this company special is that they used every ecosystem advantage that they could. They were part of I-Corps. They were part of Mass Challenge. They were part of Texas Health Catalyst. They were part of Capital Factory. They reached out to Tech Ranch. They used every advantage they can. In the 4 years, they got 2 patents. They already got their first 1.5 million in funding. They're working on their second round of funding for 15 million. I included their links so that if you do want to reach out and ask them questions, you have that advantage. But let me tell you a little bit about their technology. When someone has epilepsy, there are times when the surgeon needs to actually remove the damaged brain tissue to stop the seizures. So they'll take an MRI of the patient. The brain is in a stagnant position. They locate the damaged tissue, and then when they're in the OR and they remove the scalp, there is a pressure shift and the brain actually moves. So prior to this scanner, neurosurgeons had to guess how much did the brain shift to be able to figure out how much tissue they needed to remove. Now with this 3D scanner, they have a real-time image of where that damaged tissue is. So it's an amazing technology, and it has gotten this far because of all that networking and ecosystem advantages that they had done. So again, my name is Tami Annable. You can reach me at Tami@techranchaustin.com. Here's my cell phone number. Please feel free to reach out. I'm more than willing to help you get started. Thank you again for your attention, and have a wonderful day.
Okay, as I mentioned, I was disappointed that Tami wasn't able to join us live. Let me just switch over to the other presentation. Just we do that really quickly. Tami wasn't able to join us live, but because of the situation, but as you can tell, she's very accessible about how she likes to work and work with our entrepreneurs. And part of what I wanted to say was this. So there were so many applications that came in that had like either bioscience or medical device that I was like, okay, typically this isn't one of the things that we'll put in one of the earlier seminars, but I wanted to make sure that we went ahead and opened this up because TechRanch can help you bridge into each one of these locations. One of the things that we heard from Tami on almost every slide was this idea of collaboration. Texas, the word that's behind the root of the name Texas is a word that says is called friends. I mean, the word originally was Tejas, which means friends in a Native American language. And one of the things that I think is very unique, especially for those of you that might have experiences in the United States already, Texas is much more collaborative as a state, and especially Austin. And so you hear that all through what Tami just said. The main thing I want to make sure I just emphasize is that style of doing business is really unique compared to other parts of the United States. Now, we are based in Austin. TechRanch is based in Austin. And so because of that, you know, the predominance of what we'll do in the connections that we build on the bridge are just naturally going to be in Austin. But the nice thing about this is we can make sure that that we connect you into these other organizations as well. If you're interested, the PDF that Tami referred to will be available as a link in the follow-up email that we'll send to you. And if there's other questions for Tami, you can send her your information directly, or you can actually follow up with her as well in the way that she said. Probably the easiest at this first stage will be using the Slack channel that we're going to be using. Could I get a show of hands, by the way, of you that have used Slack, that use Slack on a daily basis as a interaction model? Okay, so it looks like we have a number of Slack users. One of the things that I'd like to do, is make sure that that we have a process that's accessible to you for the questions that even before I'm physically in Budapest on the 21st, so that you can ask as many questions as you like. Tami is one of our mentors. She's also one of the people that our mentor program, you can interact with mentors before they become advisors in your company. And Tami is also available as one of our consultants that, you know, as a separate project can get heavily involved in supporting your company. In fact, although we're talking about bioscience right now, we have a number of consultants outside of the core of TechRanch that we use to help you plug in. So if you don't see what you're looking for through the bridge itself, feel free to ask any questions. But there is a set of named, trusted, really in-depth consultants that can help on specific areas. What we're going to do now is we're going to hear from David Potes, who started a company called Apollo Health. I wanted to have, I can tell you about success stories across all the different countries we've worked with. We've worked with entrepreneurs from 42 different countries, including Hungary in the past. And I could tell you that myself, but I think sometimes it's more powerful to hear directly from someone else, like someone who's gone through one of the bridges. So let me hand this over to David. David was in our innovation bridge between Mexico and Austin that started in 2018, went through 2019. He's continued over the last 2 years to stay connected into the TechRanch community, and he'll give us a little bit of insight about why that is. Let me hand it over to him. Thank you, David, for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. Hi to everybody. Good morning, Austin. Good afternoon in Hungary. So let me start presenting. I'm, like Kevin mentioned, I'm based out of Monterrey, Mexico. Currently the second largest city in Mexico, just a few people behind in terms of population from Mexico City, which is a monster of a city, but it's a big city around here. And I'm guessing you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so thank you, Kevin, for the opportunity to share my experience with TechRanch. And as Kevin mentioned, I am co-founder of a company called Apollo Health. What we do is that we empower healthcare providers to attract, serve, and retain patients. We do this by enabling solutions to potentialize healthcare providers' relationships and experience with their patients, and by implementing our digital solutions based in patient engagement and patient journey strategies. Right now, we're currently developing the first virtual care center in Mexico called Ava Salud, which is translated to Ava Health. And we are leveraging our patient journey and engagement know-how, in which we are integrating 52 hospitals, and we'll be working with over 10,000 users in the next year. So let me start from the beginning, from what Kevin already talked about a little bit, is that we joined TechRanch through the Mexico-Austin Impact Innovation Bridge. This was in 2019, when this bridge that was funded by the Mexican federal government, the Tecnológico de Monterrey Institute, and Inc. Monterrey. And first, there were about 200 companies that applied in the initial stages. At the end, 10 startups were selected. That is practically this photo that you have right here. These are the entrepreneurs that were selected with their startups. And it was really interesting because at the first stages, we actually started with the entrepreneurial education on different levels, because one of the first things that we had to do was to present our company in Austin. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slides, but going through that process, just at the beginning of when the bridge started, and this gave us a little more sense of how, even though actually Monterrey is just a 2-hour drive from the US border to Texas, even though we are so close to the US, there's a huge cultural difference. So it was really interesting to go through those first stages with the Innovation Bridge and start to learn how you do business in Texas, you do business in the US, and how we can adapt what we are doing to be ready to land in Austin, in Texas, right? So one of the things I want to talk to you about are these 3 main things that we taken more advantage of going through working with TechRanch and going through the Innovation Bridge, and then after that with Venture Outfitters, one of the programs from TechRanch. And one of the first things is that we learn to really identify, even though it's a really simple thing to say, like what are you selling? we really learned to identify what it is that is our value that we were actually selling. And what I mean by this is, before entering TechRanch and currently, there's a before and after with Apollo Health. I'm sure Kevin remembers my first pitch was a, I don't know, probably 2-minute long explanation of very complex of what we were doing, what we're trying to achieve. And going through this process, and this is just talking about, how to we redefine our pitch, but we started to understand what it is we were actually, what was our value and what we were actually selling to our company. So this is something that not only worked for us for Texas and the US, it also worked for us in how we sell our company here in Mexico. Try to identify key factors that actually give value to our clients, but at the same time, in those 30 seconds, you have to pitch what it is that we can concise and articulate as a very comprehensive and attractive way of selling our company, right? I don't know if I'm making sense with that. But at the end, this was very comprehensive in terms of, working with our lean canvas and identifying different niches of where we can actually create value for clients. Also adapting our whole business plan to be US market ready, and validating our business model in terms, because there's a huge difference between the Mexican healthcare system and the US healthcare system. So there was a lot of relationships and advisors and consultings that we went through so that we could understand first the US healthcare system, because we knew it as a glance, but we have to go in depth to understand that, and regulations and everything that concerns you basically entering the US market, and specifically for the healthcare system, right? And all of this then has different ways that it starts to work, and one of them is Kevin always jokes with me about is that we have to be always ready to present. So actually, one of the funny stories about this is that when I first met Kevin personally, because we met virtually through the beginning stages of the bridge. But when we first went to Austin with TechRanch, there was this huge event, and somebody from Monterrey couldn't arrive at time. So we just met recently, and Kevin just went grabbed me and told me, what was your name again? I was like, David. Okay, David, you have to present right now to the whole people right here about the innovation bridge, and talk a little bit about your company. I was a little bit scared, because I mean, this was completely out of the blue, and I wasn't ready to present. But this was one of the first things that and this happens regularly with the weekly conference that we have, is that you always have to be ready to present your pitch. You always have to be ready to understand what are your needs in terms, because, and this again goes through the next slides, the amount of collaboration and resources that you can actually tap into working with TechRanch, it's amazing. So just always be ready to present, because and this has, I mean, you can imagine this has a reason, right? You never know when the next opportunity to present your company is going to be. I mean, that's why it's called the elevator pitch, right? Because you can go into an elevator and find a potential investor, and never know when it's a good time to be ready to present, and be very articulate about what you're going to sell, and those key things that are interesting for the investor, for a client, or whatever. So, for example, just to give a really quick example, one of the things that Kevin and his team always are emphasizing is, give them some traction. What is your traction? So one of the things I didn't do before was what you saw on the slide with what we do is that we were working with X number of hospitals, and we had X number of users. For some reason or another, I didn't talk about that. So Kevin was really, he really, pushed me and talk about those numbers, and show them some traction, so that we can show how valuable our company has already been for and is for our clients here in Mexico, right? And the third thing is something that Tami talked a little bit about. Well, actually talked a lot about, is the collaboration and relationship building. I mean, I couldn't find a better picture. This is me on the back right here. So this is a picture actually from the event I was talking about, where we presented to potential clients and investors in Austin. So this has a different levels we can talk about. There's a lot of relationship building, like Kevin just mentioned, in terms of advisors, consultants, mentors. There's also a lot of connections with investors, potential clients, and there's a lot of. And one of the things I take a lot of value, and this is more recurrent, is the relationship you build within the community. So, for example, with our cohort, the Mexican Austin Bridge, these were 10 companies that we didn't knew each other from the start. And right now there's a lot of collaboration between us. Even though some of us are in different sectors, there's a lot of collaboration between, the connections that they have that could be potential clients for us, or the technology that one is developing, and they're starting to grow into, for example, the healthcare space. So, and this is not only between, the Mexican Austin Bridge. I mean, we have talked with people from Nigeria, people from Russia. There's a lot of potential from Europe. There's a lot of connections within the community, within the cohort, the different cohorts, and in our case right now with venture outfitters from Tech Ranch. That is another program that there's a lot of connections that have been developing within the community. And this is besides, like Kevin just mentioned, like asking, Kevin, I need to a connection from somebody within, the healthcare space in Texas, specifically for virtual care. And probably Kevin doesn't have the connection right away, but he will find somebody that does and make that connection for you. So, the relationship building has been something that I take more value from. And this is going to my last slide in terms of how we have been continuing to improve with Tech Ranch, and as I mentioned right here, the journey continues. Right now we're working with venture outfitters, and like I mentioned, another program by Tech Ranch, and it's you take a lot of value from people that go in and to share about their companies, their experiences, their struggles. Also, that's something that right now with the world, you go into Instagram, you go to every social media, LinkedIn, and everything you see is success, right? And just tapping into other people's experience and really them opening about their struggles, it's refreshing, because I'm sure you all experienced that success is not a straight line up. You go up and down, and sometimes when you're down, you feel like you're stuck there, and there's no way out. So sometimes just the hearing somebody that also went through that, or I'm sorry about the noise, just the talking about their experiences and how they solve those issues, and again going within the community, and also hearing about how somebody is having a trouble because their clients are not paying them or something like that. It's like, okay, I'm not alone in this. So there's a lot of value you can actually take. There's always this continuing process in terms of where your startup is, what can we do to improve in sense of marketing, sales, regulation, something about legal status in terms of immigrating to the US, or talking about visa status, things like that. There's a lot. The scope is so big, and it has this tailor-made way. If you can take advantage of it, it could be tailor-made to what you actually need. So you can actually find, I'm looking more into terms of right now I have an issue with marketing. We're having an issue with a HR to hire employees because whatever. So there's a lot of value if you can actually take advantage, like that Tami mentioned before. You take advantage of the resources that this programs have. There's a huge value in all of this. So I just want to close with this. I don't know if you have any questions, like Kevin mentioned, you can interrupt me and talk, even though I'm already finished. But You can ask whatever you want. I believe this is set for, yes. Also, if you have any questions after this, or you can send me an email or, WhatsApp or whatever, but I appreciate, Kevin, the opportunity and the time to share about a little bit of our experience. And if you want me to go deeper into anything, just let me know.
Thank you, David. That's excellent. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask live right now to David? We'll have some time at the very end of the presentation as well, but I just want to make sure if you have a pressing question you'd like to interact with, feel free to either ask it through chat or come on and ask it verbally. Anyone?
I got a quick question for David.
Yes, please.
David, what stage were you guys in when you joined the program?
Yes, that's a good question, Richard. We were fairly early stage. I mean, we already had some traction. We were already working with 10 hospitals in Mexico, but we were not a big startup. We were just 3 people working from Monterrey, and so we were not a big startup. We were not I forgot the term right now. We were not at the earliest of the stages, but we were not also a big company in terms of that. I mean, we were just in that right process where we could redefine, our product or value and things like that, and go into the U.S. market. I don't know if that helps you a little bit.
And did you have revenues from those 10 clients at that point?
Yeah, we already had revenues. Yes. So one of the things also is in our case, we didn't go in through any funding process. We were working with our own revenues.
Thank you, David.
Sure.
Other questions? We'll have David stick around. And then David's very active in our community. One of the things that I think you're hearing over and over and over, you heard it from Tami, now you're hearing from David. This whole idea about building relationships is a key component of the Tech Ranch business. If you come to the United States, there are a lot of very transactional focused accelerators and incubators, and that style has its place. We are very relationship focused, and I'll tell you why. A lot of times, especially when, in my experience on crossing borders, I started a business in Chile and I started a business in Mexico as an expatriate, right, in both cases. And one of the hardest things that I dealt with in both cases was not having the relationships to move the business forward. We believe that in this whole concept of helping drive collaboration, that by focusing on relationships first and foremost, everything else can move along. And we believe that, and we have several examples of this where we saved, more than 6 months of time estimated for several different, founders of companies or entrepreneurs or companies that have come to the US. So you'll hear that over and over and over. And I'm going to speak about that with my next set of slides. For those of y'all that are more technical, you might say, okay, why is the relationship so important? I have this beautiful product. There's a set of theories that say that information flows are more important than information stores. Information flows are more important than information stores. The market in each one of the markets that you're actually operating within is changing so fast now that whatever was historical might have been true, last week, last month, last year, in the last decade, but it might have changed. And we see that, especially in the US market and many of the different sub-markets that you operate in, that it's not what the way things always used to be. It's the way things are happening now. And the only way that you get access to those information flows is through the right relationships. So that's why that's so core. Let me go back to go ahead, David.
I was just going to add something about what you just mentioned, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this or heard about this, but all of my friends that have gone to do MBAs in top Ivy schools, Ivy League schools in the US or Harvard or whatever, one of the things that we currently hear about, what was the greatest value in going to this Ivy League schools, is always about the relationships they build. That's the number one and key factor in terms about the value of building relationships. So That's one of the reasons I added that at the end, because those relationships actually have brought a lot of value in different stages of our company. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you, David. Yeah, no, I think that that's very true.
Yes, Kevin, and if you allow me to step in.
Yes, please, Gabor, go ahead.
With this topic, and if you could give me like a practical example how this network and this flow of information works in practice, because that's something I'm finding in Hungary. We are sort of needing these sort of engagements. So how does that work in the practice?
Well, so I'll actually, I have a couple of slides and I'm going to go into more of a technical analysis of relationships. But at the high level, the thing, I mean, there's several different examples of this. When you're entering a new market, whether you're starting in the market or you're actually entering the US market, right? You know, might already have success in the Hungarian market, but the market signature, the way that the market acts in the US or any other country is going to be slightly different. And you have to explore that as quickly as possible. Now, the problem with having to explore it, it's just like at the very beginning of the startup. You know, startups are different than large corporations, that corporations know, okay, this is what we're doing. And all we're going to try to do this year is increase the capability by 3%. We're only focused on a 3% growth, you know, or whatever it might be, some small amount of growth. For a startup, and especially if it's a scale up that's entering into the US market, the US market's different than the Hungarian market. And so you have to test and tweak and test and tweak and test and tweak. And one of the fastest way of doing that, and one of the reasons that Austin is such a powerful place to be building startup ventures, is if you can build relationships that are somewhat informal, you can get information faster to get feedback back and forth. When there's very formal relationships, like you might find in not to pick on any other US cities, but I'm going to use this as an example. Boston is a very formal city compared to Austin. And to build relationships in Boston is a little bit more difficult, at least in my experience, than it is in Austin. And so when a prospective customer has feedback, they'll hold it back typically. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people or something like that. It just means that they don't share it as fast back and forth. And so back at the startup or in your company, you might not have the opportunity to know, okay, why is it the customer is not, or the prospective customer is not telling me what's going on? We haven't heard from them. Does that mean that they're not interested? Does that mean that, you know, the person's out because of a family sickness? Does that mean that they're considering it? You know, you don't have anything back and forth. If you can build that relationship a little bit more solid and you haven't heard from the customer, I find that we can actually iterate much, much faster. That's the whole thing. As we're entering into any new market, whether it's coming to the US or expanding in a market, you know, back in your home country, like in Hungary, it's an exploration process and you have to test and tweak and test and tweak and test and tweak back and forth. And so that's why this is such a powerful thing. Gabor, does that answer the question you're asking? Does that give a sense of?
Yep, definitely. Especially when you're entering a new market, that's the pace of exchange of information, may that be a business feed or a feedback or just a new contact or a sales position. That's pretty much effective and resource saving as well if you have a high flow of these sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, like the informality, but still having the relationship in place, you can get information back much faster, and that is really, really powerful. I have another example in one of our other countries that we worked with, where the entrepreneur pretty much, we had set up all the right type of relationships, and the entrepreneur, because of his country background, and I won't pick on the country, but because of his country background, said, hey, I did all the work I'm going to do, and if they're interested, they're going to call me. And we're like, hey, no, that's not the US style. Like, that's not the Austin style. That's not the US style. Just, you know, hey, you've got my phone number. You'll call me if you want some of this stuff. That doesn't work. That actually absolutely didn't work. And it was really sad to see. It was, you know, we're talking about best practices today. I hate to use a negative practice, but that's an example where there's a cultural blindness. I'll use that. I have an example about how we might look at this, a lens to look at this in the slides that we have remaining. So let me hop back into the presentation. What I want to talk about is, so we're talking about best practice insights. Now, David and myself both are martial artists. He practices a martial art called Jiu-Jitsu, and I practice a martial art called Aikido. And so I think of this from the standpoint of almost like you might think of our pedagogical model, our educational model, our engagement model looks like the martial arts. It's not a contest. It's all about how can we get better at what we're doing? That's not about one person beating another person. It's about how do we improve as quickly as possible. That's what I mean by this martial arts metaphor for the way we're thinking about these best practices. So there's a notion of a blue ocean versus a red ocean. A blue ocean meaning that all the fish are happy, that there's not a lot of blood in the water. And the red ocean, I couldn't find one that actually had that was pleasant looking enough, but the thing that actually happens is most markets in the US, if it's an existing market, are by definition a red ocean, meaning there's a lot of competition. And the key thing for creating a blue ocean market is to have the right messaging. We heard that a while ago from what David said. He said that in his slides, he said that he started with a 2-minute long pitch and it was like talking. And I'll make fun of Americans. I'm an American. Americans, if you talk too long, you miss the opportunity. You miss the opportunity because Americans don't have long attention spans. One of the things I admire about my Hungarian friends and other people from more generally from Europe, especially Central Europe, is there's like real deep engagement. And sometimes that doesn't work in the United States. In the red ocean of the United States, to find the blue ocean part that is a entry strategy or entry market for you, you have to have very, very tight messaging. One of the things that we'll be doing in the Venture Essentials class as part of the training, and we'll do as part of the overall program in Budapest, is really focusing in on how to get to that really tight American style type of messaging. And it doesn't mean that the longer engineering conversations are not appreciated here. It just means that there is a certain style that, if at all possible, if you can play to, it's really, really powerful. Second thing is, I always like to return back to the technology adoption lifecycle. Many of you, when you built your companies, you went through this process, where you actually start with the innovators who build the product themselves, the early adopters who, even before the product is really stable, will take a risk on you. The early majority customers, they're like, hey, they like being early, but the product has to be perfect when you actually engage with them. Late majority and laggards. I like to remind our entrepreneurs that are crossing country borders that you have to think about this cycle again, that as we look for customers for your products, as you're entering into market again, it's almost like we're starting over with early adopter customers. And the key thing to do is to differentiate between early adopters and early majority customers. Early adopters will take a faster risk on a early stage or a new company that's coming into the country earlier on, like, they'll treat you almost like a startup. You could actually already have 30 people and lots of, millions of dollars worth of revenues and stuff like that. But there's still a target that we should be looking for in early adopters. And this is true across all the different markets, whether you're working on medical device to social media technology to AI or manufacturing, that there's an early adopter conversation that as you come to the US, we should be looking for early adopters, not early majority customers. Now, once you're established in the US and you've proven out the early adopters, then early majority customers make a lot of sense. But before that, it doesn't make sense to be hopping straight in, and certainly not late majority and laggard kind of customers, because they will perhaps be very nice to you. Oh, welcome to the United States, all that sort of stuff. but I call it if you're not careful, they will do what I call, they will nice you to death, meaning they'll continue conversations with you for a very long time. Oh, you're from Hungary, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's great. And the product does the following thing. The problem with that is the conversation is very nice, but it doesn't actually go towards sales. So that's, again, why we have to really draw in, especially in the early stages, on early adopter customers for you, and staying away from some of the nice conversations that would be great to have these people as customers later, but not at the early stage. The third thing is there's this cultural comparison tool from this company called Hofstede Insights that will have the URL available to you. That does. I did a quick country comparison between Hungary and the United States. This is really valuable. No matter what market you're looking at, there's a certain style of American, and I wish they actually had Texas on here as well, because Texas is really different than the United States. I mean, a lot of people think of the United States being one country. It's really not. In fact, even as you look, there are identifiable differences in cultures, even in the cities in Texas. And so I wish we had that level of granularity, but I want to go over these 6 styles because a lot of times, if you've tried to come to the United States before with your product and you bounced off of the United States for whatever reason, it could be one of these 6 categories of problem areas. First one is power distance. Now, 46 to 40, Hungary and the United States right here. What does this mean? Power distance means can decisions be made far away, or do they have to be centralized? Americans and Hungarians look like that there's enough trust among in the country that decisions can be made far away from where headquarters might be. Like it is, and if you're selling into a corporation in the United States, but you really don't want to sell to for whatever reason, you want to sell to one of the local areas versus the top headquarters. Well, that's more possible in the United States because power is more distributed. Sounds like that this is very similar with Hungary. This is a fairly similar score. Individualism. Again, we see that there's Americans think of themselves a little bit more individualistic than Hungarians, but this actually shows this is close enough that there's some similarities that we both think of ourselves as individuals and have an individual identity and celebrate that. And so part of the value of this is you'll have managers that are making buying decisions that will identify with the purchase themselves as they're bringing the product in. That's a really powerful thing to see. Masculinity. There is a significant difference between these two, 88 versus 62. And part of the thing to be careful about in knowing this about the Hungarian culture versus the American culture is America, you can see on our news, a lot of times we have a lot of sensitivity to certain different issues that you might not see in Hungary. And this is where this is identifiable. It could be, and since I do not know Hungary yet, and I will only get like my first bite of this when I'm actually there for the week of the 21st to the 29th. I'll dig in a little bit more and look at look from an American standpoint, or I should say a Texan standpoint, to try to understand that so we navigate through companies that take advantage of this. But this is a significant difference to be looking at. Even more so, uncertainty avoidance. Americans will do things when there's a lot of uncertainty, whereas Hungarians looks like that you guys really like to figure out what's going on with something. Now, this is something you can take to your advantage. What does this mean? Americans are more likely to take a risk on your product and a risk in the conversation with you than you might think coming from Hungary. Americans, a lot of times, what this shows us is that Americans might say, you know what, I know this guy just came from Budapest and he's here and he's interacting with us and all that sort of stuff. And we don't know everything, but we're going to take a risk That might surprise you in the sales process. This shows us that this might surprise that the American will say, hey, we only know kind of most of the stuff, so let's go ahead, let's go try. Whereas with countries that have a high uncertainty avoidance, like as an example, sorry, Siri is wanting to speak in. I'm not sure why she actually all of a sudden decided to listen in, but she's obviously listening to me. One of the things that's happening here that we should be thinking about is, well, when I did business in Chile, as an example, Chileans have a very high uncertainty avoidance. In fact, there are certain Chileans that I knew of for 7 years that there's a group that didn't do business with me for 7 years because their uncertainty avoidance is so high. Just know that as you step into the United States, the likeliness the American will actually do business with you might go faster than you might imagine if you can get the right messaging put together sooner. Long-term orientation, again, something I admire about your country is the long-term orientation. Sometimes I'm a little embarrassed about the American very short-term orientation. You know, you see this in our business and that we're focused very quarter to quarter to quarter. Whereas in Hungary, obviously, this is the difference that's high enough. It's different enough that this will show up and feel perhaps a little bit different about doing business here. A lot of times Americans will actually be saying, okay, what's your product going to be doing for me right now? Like, we have to find out how we actually make something happen this month. Whereas the Hungarian mentality is probably more from the standpoint of, okay, if you establish this now, you're going to see returns in 2 years. The American actually might be more around the idea of like in a very short term. Let's see. I want to go ahead and answer a couple of questions that are coming in on the channel, just so I don't miss them as the chat comes up. Tomas actually asked, let's see, he said, hey, Kevin, do you see in the case of the Texas agri-tech cultures, do you have customers? Do you have a decent amount of early adopters there? As I could see here in the EU and Brazil, the ratio of laggards is extreme in the sector, especially in the case of cattle farmers. Texas is so vast, and since agriculture and farming, ranching is such a fundamental part of us, you will see a full distribution. And I do believe that because of our cultural frame, you'll see more people taking risk on earlier stage technology. Now, obviously, there's the stereotype of the Texas rancher or the Texas farmer that, doesn't, is very conservative. And that is present. But I can tell both my family, both my grandfathers were farmers, when I was a child. And the mentality of the farmers and the farming community at all stages, whether it's the small family farms all the way up to the larger agriculture type of groups, will engage with technology much earlier. In fact, we just had a farming technology company come to Austin specifically saying they're about to open up a big office here because they're concerned with getting some of the Austin style about how people move really fast in technology of all types here from Austin. So this will actually be a great location to be looking at, Tomas, for what you're looking at. I've seen this specifically, everything from vertical farming to bioreactors to traditional farming to robotic agriculture. Just off the top of my head, I can give you examples in each one of the categories I just mentioned. So I think you'll see some interesting stuff happening. Peter just asked the question, do you have insights about the uncertainty avoidance in Mexico? The uncertainty avoidance in Mexico is higher than, you can actually look this up. In fact, I might even have, I think I kept a slide where we're talking about, I actually, because I used to live in Chile and I used to live in Mexico and I started businesses in both places, as you know, I've been an expatriate who's launched businesses in these other countries. Peter, it's almost like you set up my next slide. Obviously Mexico is higher Now, in northern Mexico, where David comes from, in that northern part of Mexico, the part of Mexico that borders the United States, that borders Texas, the uncertainty avoidance is not as high as other parts of Mexico. So I think that this, even though 82 is significantly higher than 46, the thing to know about is that this is very regional. The northern Mexicans are known as norteños, meaning that means northerners, essentially. They are more like, it's like a frontier mentality. Texas has a frontier mentality. The northern Mexico has a frontier mentality, meaning that the uncertainty avoidance is lower in that part of Mexico than we see. And so Texas and Mexico for the northern part is there. In the 32 states of Mexico, though, part of what we can do is, if you're looking at Mexico and you're looking at using TechRanch as a launch pad into Mexico, since I used to do business in Mexico, and I still do, right? Probably have as many conversations with Mexican companies right now as I do with American companies on a weekly basis, just because of my personal history. The main thing is finding the right part of Mexico. As an example, like the manufacturing base of Mexico that we see in the state of Coahuila, the state of Nuevo León, the state of Chihuahua, the state of Guanajuato, and the state of Querétaro. They're very, very advanced and very, technology savvy about picking up technology. As an example, the middle part of Mexico as well, called the Bajío region, which happens to be the part of Mexico where the revolution of, in Mexico's history happened. That part is very, very technology forward. And as an example, that's where BMW opened up one of their plants to take advantage of that same type of mentality. Let me go back to the previous slide, though. So long-term orientation, whereas we got into a little bit. And I do think that the main thing is you need to make sure that you speak into both the short term and the long term when you're talking to American clients. Now, this will vary by industry, but and this is a very general tool. And when we're talking about 350 million people in a country of the United States, obviously, not everyone thinks this way. Like, as an example, I'd like to think of myself as an American who thinks for the long term. But there are many that actually it's very, very short term. In our industry, in our market, and Wall Street tend to have lots of managers thinking very, very short term. The final one is indulgence. And I think this is, again, as Hungarians think about the American stereotype, right? The American stereotype is the person who's like very indulgent. You can see it in a lot of different you can see it a lot in the movie representation of the stereotype of the American. That is very true. Now, how do you take this as your advantage? From an advantage standpoint is if you're speaking to a manager in charge of purchasing your product in the business-to-business realm, the main thing to know is this might mean that a lower level manager might take advantage of your product much earlier than the overall corporation. There's also obviously, if you're in a B2C, a business to consumer space, there's, the way that we might joke about this is to say that Americans want more bling, it's but from a business to business standpoint, the thing to know about is that you can actually, you can think about how you might engage to their egos almost is a way of taking advantage of that. Switching back to the examples of Chileans and Mexicans, like Mexicans, very, very indulgent. Long-term orientation, the cultures are very similar. Uncertainty and avoidance, this is what I was saying earlier about, look at Chile. Chile is just like, they just really, really, really just, don't want to take risk. Mexicans, some parts of Mexico don't really want to take risk as well. Uncertainty and avoidance, Americans. So you can see again, individualism, here's that high individualism scale where, Americans are just like, it's the individual all the way. As we get to know each other better for your companies, and especially those of you that go forward with us in the seminars that are coming, we'll be able to speak to that as well. So entry modes, we'll go into these type of issues in the seminar that we do in Budapest. We'll have 20 slots, as well as the 5 slots will we go forward into the next stage. But entry modes, this is such an important topic that it'll be touched in that 20 company orientation about how do you actually come in? Are you licensing your technology or franchising a joint venture, which means you're almost like a peer, or opening up a subsidiary or a channel partner. And this is just a slide that kind of goes into a little bit more about what are the advantages and disadvantages as we work together, and I can actually individually interact with you in that group setting. We'll go into more details about this, and then we'll do very much more in depth with the 5 companies that move forward with us from that standpoint. We've got another couple of questions that are coming in. According to your opinion, what level of technology readiness does the business need to gain to gain support from TechRanch? I think what you're saying is the stage of company preparation. And Zabina, if you want to follow on with a question, if I miss, please just ask me. There are technologies, actually there is science that was getting ready for commercialization that wasn't even a technology yet, and certainly wasn't a product that we have had. We've had success getting connected into, when it's still science in the lab bench. That is a really hard thing to do though. It's like, sometimes it's like, you just kind of have to do shoot from the hip, as the metaphor is. And maybe there's a way of doing that. And we do have one of the mentors that will be part of this program is going to be doing patent analysis and technology analysis for technologies that are very early on in the commercialization process. It's important though, the closer to science versus technology that it is harder. Really the thing that I want to make sure that we do is the companies or the startups that actually have their technology already in market and that they've already sold as products. It's science to technology to products. The most successful companies that I think we have the best chance of creating results with in this first bridge. And this bridge is just like the first part of something that I hope we go much, much longer because there's so much brilliant technology and science in Hungary. I've been a fan of your country for a very long time. I actually was telling Consul Gabor that I personally invested some money in a project about 7 years ago in Hungary, even though I've never even been there, which is like science. So longer term, we're going to be able to do a lot more with this first project, with this first bridge. What I really think will be the most successful for what we're doing for this iteration is products that have already been in market that have had some traction. They can be early stage. If you're familiar with the lean startup stages, there's the problem solution fit, the product market fit, and then growth. I would really suggest that you should at least have some strong sense of product market fit. If those categories don't make sense, we'll actually have an overview. One of the programs that you'll be able to go through, if your company is one of the ones selected to go forward, we'll be able to go through that. And that's only for this first version, this first bridge. We have to be somewhat conservative because we only have so many resources for this first bridge. That being said, when I am there in Budapest and also on the Slack channel that we're going to open up, please just ask, say, hey, this is where we're at. We have science, or we have technology, or we have product, and we have the following kind of thing, following customer. We've already seen it's something that David mentioned earlier. Tell me what type of traction do you already have? Like maybe it's just traction of, hey, we published the following science papers. Okay, that's possible. The thing that I think for this first version will be easiest is the later stage, like and I don't mean products that have been around forever. I mean, the products that are compelling, that are new, that might be in new markets that don't yet exist in the United States. That's probably, that's some of the most interesting thing I think we can see. And again, to tie the question into the entry modes, a lot of times finding the right entry mode partner like a channel partner versus trying to do direct sales might be the way to go. Next question, Kevin, what do you think about how to approach Texas medical and pharmaceutical community with a new business modern health hub solution? Celia, so I'd like to dig in a little bit more in asking about your product, but my immediate blush reaction to tie your question into what we just heard from Tami, who's one of our mentors, advisors, and consultants. The Dell Medical School is the newest medical school in the United States, and it's based here in Austin. Austin, for the longest time, did not have a medical school. And so when they launched one of the things where this is an advantage, so you might think that, well, you want to have a medical school that's been around for 150 years. In this case, the medical school was set up in a different way. And one of the things that I find as an entrepreneur is, as a breath of fresh air, is they are very open to having people interact. In fact, part of the value of Tech Ranch being a bridge to that medical school is that we have a direct line connection with the woman who runs the part of introducing new products into that group. And they are very focused on preventative care. So I don't know if I'm targeting what you're saying right from a new business model and health hub solution.
Yes.
Yeah, go right ahead, Celia. Please tell me.
Yeah, should I tell it to you now? I try to do it in the 1-2 sentence. So it is a telehealth solution which can do a normal telemedicine doctor-patient discussion, but it has 2 other modules. One is a peer-to-peer discussion, which is a great need now during the COVID times. Doctors have difficulties reaching each other in, for example, let's say you have a sclerosis multiplex patient, and then you would like to reach an oncologist because the patient's starting to have some type of symptoms. And then to reach another doctor is extremely difficult. But with our system, and this is the feedback from Hungary, you just easily look for another doctor who is available in the system for oncology consultation. And it's free because the pharmaceutical industry is basically financing it. And then the 3rd module is the doctor pharmaceutical rep opportunity of virtual meeting.
That is not in my area of expertise, but my perception for those markets, especially after COVID, healthcare has gotten beaten up all around the world, especially in the United States. And anything that helps address cost is going to be popular for getting integrated in. And my perception, based on what you're telling me, is this would help us. This would help the parties actually take on cost. So there could be interesting people on the payer side, the insurance company side, as well as the institutions themselves.
Right.
The place I would go, we do have a partnership with the Austin Healthcare Council that we just announced in the last 2 weeks. That would be the right place to introduce in that. And Gus Cardenas, the head of that organization, is going to be one of the mentors that's going to be involved in this program. And so we do have an on-ramp into that. Not that, and like I should say, for the people who are not healthcare, Tech Ranch is not 100% focused just on healthcare. It just happens to be that because of a lot of our relationships, we have some interesting relationships for driving those kind of connections. The other thing to consider, obviously, since we have him on today, the other person that I would suggest that maybe using the chat behind the scenes, it'd be great for you and David to share contact information, because I know that David's company is in an adjacent space. And it could be that one of the things that we've seen happen among our entrepreneurial teams is collaboration that happens that then ends up having both teams go to a different level. And David might even say something about that, because I know he's had some success for those types of collaborations.
I was just going to say about I was just about to contact Celia in the chat because of what she mentioned. Yes, it's yeah, definitely. And just to answer your comment, Kevin, yeah, definitely there has been a lot of collaboration between entrepreneurs. So just hearing about, this, for example, a doctor from Nigeria talking about his solution in healthcare space. I've been in contact with him. So there's a lot of collaboration that happens, sometimes very spontaneous, because it's not something that you were looking for, but you hear other people's problems or solutions or approaches, and you end up building this very interesting relation that could build for something that you were not precisely looking for in that moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
A good
very much.
I'm
example.
gonna send you a message, Julie.
Thank you. By
Yeah.
the way, Kevin, I also live in Austin, the domain, so I am also.
That's funny.
I love your city, or our city.
Beautiful. Well, definitely, since you're physically here, we should make sure that we are kicking off a lot of in-person events as well. So I'll make sure when you identify yourself to my assistant who is on, his name is Gelo, Gelo. We can make sure that we put you on the local list as well for activities that happen here, because we are starting to, obviously, since things are opening up in Austin, we're starting to kick off in-person events as well. So please, y'all exchange contact information. We'll make sure that we take advantage of that. Thank you, Celia.
Thank you.
Cool. Let's see. I'm going to go over one more slide. Actually, this is my final slide for the day, saying, why am I putting up a slide that has the old wagon trains? It's to say that as long as you're looking at the United States and speaking back to the uncertainty issue that I was talking about earlier, one of the things that's most powerful about the US mentality, and especially the Texas mentality, I mean, there's a reason that Tech Ranch is called Tech Ranch, right? It's to speak of the notion of being in Texas, the explorer mentality. A lot of what you can take advantage of is the mentality that will take a risk with you. It doesn't mean that you can just walk into an office and just automatically, someone's not going to say yes immediately. But the fact is that we are a nation of pioneers and explorers. And because of that, this working back and forth is, I think you'll find some open minds for actually engaging in the conversation. So let me see if there's any other questions before I go to the next session of just wrapping up. And I know we're right at 12:01 my time, and we're supposed to be finished by now, but I just have a couple other slides that I'd like to go through, just so you know all the different things that are happening. Any other questions before we go to the closing part of this session? Okay, let me go ahead and proceed. And then what Gelo will do is he's going to invite you into a Slack channel. The Slack channel is specifically for communication on this. You will be invited into 2 different Slack channels. One of them's what we call the Venture Outfitter channel. And you can take, any of you, even if you're not one of the 20 companies, can take advantage of the Venture Outfitter channel, as long as it's an entrepreneurial venture, is the first part. But then the second part is any one of you, even if you're not in the 5, you can take advantage of the channel that's going to be specifically for this project, for this first bridge. So feel free to take advantage of that. You don't have to do any other further participation. Obviously, I hope that you take advantage of some of the other things I'm about to tell you about, but that's immediately available. The main thing is making sure that Gelo has your contact information, and we'll work with Consul Gabor to make sure that we have as many people on the list as possible to add you in. And what we'll have is it'll be members of the bridge that are in that communication channel, plus several other mentors and core team members from the Tech Ranch to interact with you. So just in wrapping up, the goals of the Venture Bridge: opportunities for collaboration. You've heard that word said across the 3 speakers. Target early success. So we're going to be really, I wish that we had a much wider purview, but for this first bridge, we're going to try to be very, very targeted as we select the companies. Was there something that someone want to say? Okay, go. Well, let me go ahead and hop right in. And then the third way is to look at ways for expanding our work together. So We have a 6-phase venture engagement model. The phases of this core program focus on these phases. We went more in depth about this in the previous presentation. If you actually have any questions, feel free to look back at that video. And then any of you that actually decide, hey, we'd like to engage outside of the scope of the project, do know that our other programs are available to your companies on an individual basis as well. Just make sure that we know that you'd like to even explore that conversation, because perhaps the core program might not give you what you're looking for, but one of the other core programs or one of our consultants might be the right place that you want to engage as well. Just know that we can tailor to what you need. On our schedule, and this schedule is available. Today we've had a number of different events that are happening. Today is this event, Best Practices. I will be in Hungary on the 23rd of November and the 24th of November for the workshops. I'll go over the actual details of that. The finalization, so there'll be workshops on the 23rd. I'll be doing individual interactions with 5 companies on the 24th, and then we'll have some extra time to do other follow-ups there. More details on the next page, and that's a little bit subject to change. We're going to have a number of virtual seminars for the following companies that we follow up with that go forward, and then tailored introductions for those 5 companies. And then we have really big events where, like we focused on campfires. We're going to have a session where those 5 companies will be available to be out on the stage. At this point, we're going to do it at a virtual stage unless the companies are physically here. We'll actually take advantage of some of our in-person type of things for this. Day 1 and day 2 is generally being worked out. This has been updated a little bit. It's a little bit subject to change. I will have some other time. There will be a few social type of activities as well that are happening so that we can interact. This will be updated and we'll be publishing both through the TechRanch website at techranch.com/events, as well as Consul Gabor will actually let us know how he'd like to follow up as well. And then we'll publish this through the Slack channels and an email list as well. Make sure that you submit applications. We're going to be reviewing very quickly. In the next few days, we'll be going over. So if you have not applied yet, right now, for getting involved in the next stage is pretty easy. And we do need to go ahead and do the selection for the 5. We're going to try to do that before I actually get there because of making sure that we can do some of the prep work beforehand. And then every Thursday at 11 o'clock Texas time, which I believe is 6 o'clock Central European time. Obviously, we have daylight savings time that's changing right now. That threw us off a little bit for today. Well, we do a Venture Outfitter weekly program, and you're more than welcome to join us. Every Thursday, we have a session during this time that's different topics. Next week is going to be our Global Entrepreneurship Week presentation. We're going to focus a little bit about some of the entrepreneurs and groups that we've worked with in Ramallah, Palestine, but it's going to be generally open. And if you come and you let us know beforehand that you're going to actually be here, that you'll be participating virtually, I will have a minute time for each one of you to actually present a little bit about your company. Just say, hey, I have 3 or 4 slots that I can use that we'll use across several different countries. But if you're interested, we will give you priority, even though it's a Palestine, Texas conversation, following up on some of the work that we did in Palestine in 2018 and 2019. That being said, I'd like to have it be open because our idea is not just focusing on any specific regions, but how do we build these networks across the world? In the Slack channels, we'll do this immediately. And again, in Budapest on the 23rd to the 25th. But take advantage of this. This is free. You do not have to be a part of the 20. You do not have to be part of the 5 to take advantage of these weekly programmings. On the 18th of November, we're slated for having one of the payer experts in healthcare. That is one of the insurance experts. She's written a book about healthcare insurance and why the payer market works. the way it does. That will be having on the 18th. And then for the Venture Outfitter Weekly on the 25th, since I'm going to physically be in Hungary at that time, I plan on grabbing a couple of y'all and actually having you on the camera with me as we're doing the program interactively with other people around the world, especially in Texas. It'll be a holiday called Thanksgiving that day. And so we might not have as many Americans, but we will have other countries represented in the Venture Outfitter Weekly that week. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. And I will learn how to say a Hungarian way of saying that right when I get a little bit of, I hope to be hanging out with a handful of y'all with a bottle of Unicum and sitting there somewhere in Budapest. And someone can tell me if I should be on the Buda side or the Pest side when we're doing this, but I'm looking forward to doing that. Looking forward to being with you face to face. And because I'm real excited about this opportunity to work together. And we will, if anyone would like, we can certainly share this this deck. This video will be available as well to come back to, and then following up, through the Slack channels in the face-to-face type of interactions. If you have questions, make sure that you're on our email list. Make sure that Jello, my assistant who posted his email address, it's ea@techranchaustin.com. Make sure that you're on his radar, because he'll be helping me follow up with all the different communications on what's happening. And no questions out of hand. If you have a question that you can feel that is very confidential, you can send it to us directly. Most questions, though, I'd like to ask that in the interactions, if at all possible, do them in the Slack channel, just because it'll be good for us to be interacting back and forth on that. And you'll have both the Venture Outfitter Slack channel available, and then we're going to make a Slack channel that's specific just to this bridge, just to this program, that we'll be inviting you to later today. With that, Gabor, let me hand it back over to you and say thank you for the opportunity. I'm real excited about this opportunity to work together. And I've been excited about the applications that I've been seeing, some really advanced, interesting technology coming out of Hungary. And it's very compelling for how we can go change the world for the better together. So thank you, Gabor, for this. And thank you to everyone for your participation.
Köszönöm, Kevin, just advancing that pronunciation for you. And today's really informative and really nice presentation. I believe I learned a lot of things, so hopefully everyone had some positive value added that can take home. And with this, we are concluding the first part of our seminars, the virtual part. So we will be not holding directly these sort of exercises anymore, but we will follow with the in-person 2-day capacitation in Hungary. Just a few technical details. After this seminar, I will send out a last call for questionnaires. So if you haven't submitted them, please do so. And I will also send out a declaration that it's a technical thing that I kindly ask everyone to fill out for purposes of the bids that we are being financed through. And as Kevin mentioned, we will be now doing our homework, doing the assessing. Basically, TechCrunch will do with the Hungarian partners, BMSZ10 and Tungsgram, who also will be the host of our events next week. So if everything goes well, by early next week, we will have the decisions for the 23rd, the bigger audience training, and also to the top 5 companies who will continue the work with Kevin after our part is done together. But I really appreciate the sense that we are really creating a bridge. So if you don't get selected, we will still have a lot of opportunities to interact and make part of the network, whatever be the reason you are not being selected this time. But I'm pretty confident in knowing TechCrunch and Kevin how he works, that it will be a really fair and really promiscuous opportunity for the best suited candidates from the ones taking part of this program now. So if there is no question or anything that raises concern, then we will be finishing today's event. And thank you again for participating in the first phase of the Tax and Hungarian Venture Bridge program. And we will follow up with each of you through mail and hopefully see you in the 2-3 weeks of time in Hungary, where I will not be, but Kevin, his team will be in person, of course, helped by the local partners, Tungsram and BME Z10. So thank you very much.
And please do take advantage of the free events on the 11th and on the 18th, if you'd like. We will follow up with information about that. Those are free, even if you're not selected on one of the others, and take advantage of the Slack channel communications. You can, and that will be available for long-term to you. So thank you, Gabor.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks for everyone for participating, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.